You know, Attorney John Manuelian also with us. John, one thing that stands out about this confession, aside from everything that's been heard in that courtroom, is I remember in the last trial, the defense attorney came out and said 11-year-old Michaela was not sexually assaulted. And he was saying it, he said, violating a gag order in order to give the family a sense of peace. Yet we hear this tape and he talks about this interaction. What's going on with the lawyers here that would do something like that and make that statement, yet this tape's being played in court?
I don't know. It's really tough. On one hand, as a lawyer, you have to zealously represent your client, including these two individuals. And fortunately for me, I'm a private attorney, so I don't have to represent these types of monsters. But these attorneys are appointed, and they need to do their job, and it's difficult. They got to be professional, but I mean, how can you not be human? Listening to these audio tapes, it's gut-wrenching even for the lawyers. The lawyers got a really tough job. I mean, to sit there and represent this monster and at the same time try to represent his rights, it's a really tough job, and I'm glad I don't have it.
John Manuelian, let me bring you in. John, you have a situation where only 6 fans can get in that gallery, so it leads us to believe, hey, what if you're a fan of Michael Jackson? You got that questionnaire. They asked you if you had his CDs and DVDs and all that, and you said, yeah, but it's no big deal. I don't really care so much. What are the chances that we might see a stealth juror in this case?
Big, very big. I guarantee you there will be more than one stealth juror. This is one of the largest icons internationally. I highly doubt there aren't going to be at least 5, maybe 6 Michael Jackson fans on there. It's just the nature of our pop culture. We all had Thriller. We all know the songs. We all knew his videos when they popped up at 5 o'clock at night. When they announced it, we waited hours. I doubt there's going to be any jurors that don't know who Michael Jackson is or are not fans or were not fans at some point. But what the attorneys could do is rigorous questioning during the process of picking the jury, asking them, how many songs do you know? How often did you watch Michael Jackson? How many albums do you have? And sort of filter it out that way. But you're not going to filter it out 100%. You're always going to wind up with a stealth juror.
And I want to start with John Manuelian, a criminal defense attorney, about, well, what we can expect in the next couple of days. Because we have been doing this jury selection process for a while, but things are revving up outside court, John. I was outside court this morning. The fans are starting to show up. The Michael Jackson impersonators are there with their gloves, and they're singing and dancing. And now we learn there's only going to be 6 members of the public allowed in court every day, which means the vast majority of fans are going to remain on the outside. So as this heats up, when do you think we are actually going to get to opening statements? They're set for Tuesday. Do you think we'll see it Tuesday?
I think that's very ambitious by Judge Pastor. I don't know if they're going to, because there's a lot of questions that I, as a defense attorney, would love to ask every single one of those jurors. There's a ton of questions to ask as far as their bias, whether they can listen to all the evidence, find out what, if anything, they know, how are they going to avoid watching social media. I just think that's too quick. But, you know, it might be by the end of next week or thereabout. And so what they're doing right now is they're meeting in chambers, they're hashing out and filtering out the jurors that they don't want, so that when it comes time to voir dire or questioning the jurors, they have a more precise number.
But John Manuelian, Jane brings up an interesting point. It's not going to be a minute, but they can't let them go on and on and on. Jury selection, again, I go back to the Casey Anthony case. It took longer than a week to get a jury on that case. And now the judge will have an interesting line. When do I cut the lawyers off from asking too many questions or too many questions about one point?
Well, when the questions aren't relevant anymore and the judge feels that the lawyer's wasting their time. If the lawyer's being repetitive, asking the same questions over and over, if they're not getting anything out, then the judge is going to look at his watch and say, okay, enough already, move on. But obviously, if the lawyer's hitting upon some important issues, then he could always ask the judge for some latitude to further ask some more questions of that juror.
John Manuelian, let me bring you in on this one. Trashing Michael Jackson, okay? This man was a legend. This trial is going on in Los Angeles. He was one of the biggest stars ever. People on that jury, everybody knows who this man is. And you're going to consider trashing Michael Jackson, ruining his reputation. Doesn't sound like a good strategy to me, John. What do you think?
I hope you're not blaming me. I wouldn't do that. I agree with you. I think it's a bad idea. I think they should keep it lean and mean. Just show that there's no causation between the death of Michael Jackson and Conrad Murray. You do that by showing that he must have taken the propofol or the extra propofol above and beyond the 25 milliliters, and also show that he never deviated from the standard of care. You do that by putting experts on the stand that do a play-by-play of everything that Dr. Conrad Murray did, and then verify that that's the way they would do it, and you're done. You don't need to trash Michael Jackson. And finally, you tell the jurors that this is the highest level.
Well, good luck finding doctors who are going to do that, because they actually approached some doctors who've been interviewed, and they're saying no, they refuse to be a witness for the defense because they wouldn't have done it that way, because it's total deviation from normal medical practice. John?
Jane, if you remember, during the history tour in Germany, there have been anesthesiologists that went with Michael Jackson to Germany and through his history tour in Europe and actually gave him anesthesia. I'll say it again, they gave him anesthesia to put him to sleep. Next to anesthesia, this is like Tylenol. It's not to that degree. So it's been done to Michael Jackson before. And remember, he had a high tolerance level, very high. So this is like a drug addict that could take this drug a lot more than the regular person. So you got to establish that also. So I don't think there's a black and white rule here. All you have to do is show that the people have not met their burden.